Tim Echols, Commissioner Tim Echols, represents the Georgia Public Service Commission, which, being able to dub it down, it's the governing body for our major utility, Georgia Power, in the state of Georgia. And we are so lucky to have Tim represent us. He actually just got, in 2016, another 6 years for his next term. And not many people know this, but he actually had the most votes in Georgia history for this actual position. And so there's a huge support, and there's a reason. And there's a reason for that. Not only is Tim Echols a good man, but he represents what it really means to be fiscally conservative and responsibly conservative. When I say that, I mean, when you look at renewable energy and when you look at his record of being able to support renewable energy and electric vehicles, there's no question that he is the absolute champion on the Public Service Commission board. And because of his leadership and because of the building blocks leading up to it, Atlanta was able to pass 100% renewable energy goal. And no doubt will the PSC serve as an enormous ally to be able, for the city to be able to reach our goals, as well as be able to scale this type of action across other cities and across other states. So with EVs, with clean energy, he's making a new model for responsible Republicans, not just to win elections, but to serve as a model that climate action and renewable energy and EVs gets you major, major support. He's a father of 7, he's a good man, and I'm very happy to call him my friend. Tim, coming up here.
Man, thank you. Thank you so much. You know, I told, was it Barkley, I said, look, these folks are hungry, they're getting irritable. Don't put me up there unless you let them go get their food, because, I mean, I'm a Republican. I'm going to say some things they may not want to hear. I'm going to chastise them on a few things, and I don't need them irritable. I need them fat and happy and feeling good and restful. And so anyway, you're hopefully fat and happy, not fat and happy. You're hopefully happy and open to hearing some of the things that I'm going to share with you today. You know, I am a Republican. I am ultra-conservative. I'm a right-winger. I mean, I've got 7 kids, for goodness sakes. I've been married 33 years. But I think I'm going to say some things that you like, and then I'm going to say some things to you that I hope you hear in love, since this is the renewing of the summer of love, and that you'll hear me out. Well, first, let me just say how important I think it is for leaders to lead by example. You know, I was in Portland yesterday at the EV Roadmap Conference. I'm on my 3rd EV, and I was out on a panel out there. And I told the room, and I'll tell you, that you need to be living what you're preaching. That if you're not driving an EV or some alternative fuel vehicle, that you should be, if any way possible, even if you have to buy a used one. You need to put solar on your home, or solar thermal, which is a lot cheaper, like I put on my home. But you know what? You know, I went to the University of Georgia, Samantha, and maybe I should have been an engineer. Maybe I should have been on South Campus more. But I forgot about the shade when I put the solar on my house. And oh well, $6,300 down the drain. But you know what? I promised I would do it. And I did it. You know, part of it was because I wanted to learn how it worked, right? I believe that we need to lead by example. You know, I was with in Portland, a former Washington commissioner, Phil Jones there, who was president of our NARUC Association. And Phil's just written an article, and you can see it on my Twitter feed. And he in this article, he makes this pitch that public utility commissions and public service commissions, they're the same thing. Every state has them. We regulate monopolies, energy, natural gas, sometimes water, sometimes transportation, depending on what the state constitution calls for. But Phil says it's no longer best practice for commissions just to call balls and strikes. He is urging commissioners to be more proactive. And I'm an extremely proactive commissioner, but I'm elected. And let me tell you why I think it's going to be hard for this to happen. So Phil gave kind of two pieces of advice. He said, yeah, there's still this role for commissioners to play their quasi-legislative judicial role in calling balls and strikes. But he's saying that it's time to review the regulatory compact between commissions and utilities and states, and that there needs to be a wholesale paradigm change. Now, I mean, maybe that can happen. I mean, this has been around a long time. I mean, the regulatory compact is not that commissioners like me fight with Georgia Power and that we're hostile to the utilities and that we just represent consumers and that shame on this utility for raising rates. That's not the compact. You know what the compact is? The compact is that, yeah, we're going to make sure we have low rates if any way possible, but we're also going to make sure that that utility doesn't go hand to mouth and that utility doesn't go under. So in some ways, my job is to protect consumers and to protect the utility. And you go, wait a second, utilities, they don't need protecting. Well, I mean, there are a lot of people, and if you've ever been to Germany and you ever talked about Energiewende, and you've ever seen what the Germans did to the utilities after Fukushima, you know what hostility towards utilities look like, because the Germans cut them off at the knees. And I love my German friends. I go there. I'm good friends with the Consul General in Atlanta. I promote a lot of German things, but I didn't like the way they treated utilities, and that's not my philosophy. And so when I came back from Germany, I said to the power company, look, I know you're hostile to solar here, and I know how I just saw the Germans handle things with the utilities, and I want you at the table with solar in Georgia. And our commission, by a vote of 3-2, made the utility do solar in Georgia. Not through a renewable portfolio standard, but we made them do it. And you know what? They got good at it. They're making money at it. Georgia's a leader in the nation now, and there's a lot of great things that's happening. But there's a problem here with Phil's theory, because 38 states appoint commissioners. And you know what happens? You know what happens if you're appointed by the governor to something? You know how many constituents you have? One. That's exactly right. You have one. And you better answer the phone when he calls, and you better not do anything to contradict her or make her look bad. And so being proactive may have you getting out in front of a governor. See, as an appointed commissioner, your destiny's tied to the governor. You serve at the pleasure. It's what you see even in a presidential administration. You know, one of the reasons I supported, President Trump, and as I told all of my friends, look, for me it's about all the appointments. It's not about his character to me. It's not about the junk that he may have done. It's about this wave of thousands of appointments. You see, that's part of the problem right there. You used the word all. And let me just say what our last speaker said from the UN Foundation. She talked about keeping channels open. And to keep channels open, you have to have kind of this philosophy that Samantha Joy talked about earlier. Remember when Samantha, another UGA person, I'm a triple dog. I have 3 degrees from Georgia, so I'm a big bulldog. But she said we need to reconnect people to nature. And it helps them care. It helps them love the environment. And she said, engagement can drive change. Engagement can drive change. And let me tell you what the rules of engagement are. It's not name calling. And let me just, a little time out to just give you a little chastisement. And I've been tweeting back and forth with Dr. Sachs since his comments today. But you know what? You gotta understand your target. If you're going to influence me, you've got to understand me. He understands me. He knows I have 7 kids. He knows I'm ultra conservative. His family knows me and understands me. But they have a channel with me. You know what? Because because he respects me. He listens to me. And you know what? I reciprocate. I had him at the commission to speak to a group. Not because we agree on everything, but because we have a relationship. And you can't have a relationship when you're calling people names. You can't do it. And so, you know, when Dr. Sachs said up here earlier, when he said, quote, Scott Pruitt is a despicable hack, I cringed. Because I don't call names, and I realize the feelings run deep. I realize, sir, you feel like it's all. But in your effort to influence people like me, right, who have the mantle of authority for another 6 years in a state of 10 million people, you can't call me names and then walk in and ask me for something. It has to be a channel there. And you got to build a relationship. You got to tell the truth to me. If you're lobbying me on something, you've got to tell the truth. You've got to tell me both sides. And let me hear both sides. You know, on this issue about the 100% renewables for Atlanta, my friend Ted Terry, who runs the Sierra Club in Georgia, who I love him. We have a great relationship. He texted me the other day and said, Tim, can we use your office for the working group for the 100% renewable? I said, absolutely. I said, you can't use the commission conference room because I don't know that my colleagues agree with you. But you can use my office because I control my office. And I can fit a lot of people in there. So, but see, it's telling both sides. It's building a relationship. It's activating your constituency. And you know what? In politics, quantity matters. Quantity matters. That's why the Sierra Club brags about having 3 million members, because quantity matters. And when you're influencing people, you need to bring a wide variety of people, and you need to, you know, as I try to influence people, I look at their campaign disclosure, I look at who's giving them money, I look at things they're involved with, because I want to bring people with me who have been involved in all those things, preferably somebody that's giving them money. That's important. And then finally, you've got to be there over the long haul. And when you talk about influencing policymakers, it is a long, arduous process, and you can't have this short-term mentality. You've got to think about how am I going to impact? How am I going to impact my organization over the long haul? You know, as we think about energy policy around the world, you know, that left picture is from Israel. You know, Israel has solar thermal just like I put on my house, except they go ahead and put the hot water tank right up there on the roof. I don't know that my homeowners association would allow me to do that, but that is a way that Israel has cut energy use right there. So, you know, there's a top-down approach. Germany has a top-down approach. Most of the stuff that came out of Paris was a top-down approach. One of the reasons that I was opposed to it. As opposed to a state or regional approach. In the U.S., our country is organized slightly different. As you think about the top-down approach, the Clean Power Plan was a top-down approach. Rick Perry's DOE study right now is a top-down approach. I've got an op-ed sitting there waiting for, they've kind of postponed the study, but I think one of the things that Rick Perry is prepared to do is to go in and try to change a lot of state policies on renewables. And you know, I think we've got to be consistent. You know, either we're against a top-down approach or we're not. It's one of the things that I like about what Scott Pruitt's doing at the EPA is more federalism in the EPA, giving states more decision-making. Why do I care about that? Because there's 10 million people that elected me to a job. And I don't want anyone, you know, superseding my authority, you know, in Washington, D.C., because I'm a duly constitutionally elected officer. And that it's got to be geographically specific. One of the things that came out of the Berlin Energy Dialogue, I was over there, one of the few U.S. participants there, certainly the only one from Georgia in the southeast, but one of the things that came out of that is that energy is very geographic specific. I mean, Energiewende is going on in Germany right now, but if Germany had a plethora of natural gas, they might do things slightly different. But they don't, and so they're doing it the way they're doing it because that's what their leaders have decided. You know, solar in Georgia, don't really have time to go into a lot of detail on this, but it has really, since I got elected in 2010 and really since 2011, we have made great progress. We buried the old program, which was just trying to get people to pay more than the average for kilowatt electricity on their bill, and we buried that last year. I mentioned leading by example. That's my second Nissan Leaf there. But I started this with the Solar Express, where I rented this train and I outfitted one of the cars with different solar manufacturers, and we went to Plains, Georgia, to Jimmy Carter's grade school, and we did a seminar there. And you know, we really reached out to Southwest Georgia, and most of our solar in Georgia is in the middle. It is in South Georgia, where there's cheap land, flat land, proximity to a Georgia Power substation, and tax abatements from counties that are really hurting financially. I started the Clean Energy Roadshow in his 7th year. My colleague, Commissioner McDonald, who's 78 years old, really got a bee in his bonnet and said, you know what, we're going to do something here in Georgia. And then working with him and Commissioner Everett, we created this ASI program, the Advanced Solar Initiative, where we told Georgia Power, look, we want 525 megawatts from you here over the next 3 years. That went really well. Technology, you know, continues to change, you know, with different types of panels that are more efficient. You know, we added, you know, I really view this ASI Solar that we have, you know, as more of a community solar program. Happy to talk to you afterwards. We got the largest cache of DoD solar in the nation, in the state of Georgia, about to add another 139 megawatts. So our state continues to grow. 1,600 megawatts approved last summer. This is a state with every constitutional officer as a Republican. So how many of you are going to take back all those ugly things you said, right? We are implementing this. We've got EMCs adding community solar. You know, this is my 3rd electric car, a Kia Soul. You know, I'm preaching the nexus between EVs and solar. Just a lot of great things happening in our state. You know, keep the channel open. Resist the temptation to use ugly rhetoric and call names, because it shuts doors and it keeps you from being able to influence people like me who may have authority for a year or 6 years or longer. Thank you very much.